Hello and warm welcome to Holy Trinity Church in Maisons-Laffitte. Today is the third Sunday before Lent, and we're going to be thinking about hope for when the heart leads us astray. The readings we're going to be concentrating on today from today's lectionary are Jeremiah 17, verses 5 to 10, and Psalm 1. I'd encourage you to pause here if you can and give them a read. That's Jeremiah 17, 5 to 10, and Psalm 1. Well, if you've had time to read those words, don't know if you found them as kind of full-on negative as I did. Not that there isn't hope, but sometimes in our growth path for understanding, we end up having to unpack the problem of our lives, the existential problems, much more than jumping straight to that, well, what do we do about it? If we don't really understand the depth of the problem, we might not come up with a solution that's adequate. Well, here, Jeremiah shows us a really deep problem. He says, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Or as the NRSV puts it, the heart is devious above all else. It is perverse. Who can understand it? Well, thanks, Jeremiah. I mean, don't hold back here, right? You know Jeremiah. He's one of the major prophets of the Old Testament, lived in about 600 BC, and as you may have guessed, nuance wasn't his strong suit. Neither was being overly optimistic. In fact, the word for his type of reading has actually given us a great word in both English and French, a jeremiade, or a jeremiade, a long, mournful complaint, a list of woes. How would you like to be remembered 2,600 years later with that kind of epitaph? Well, that's perhaps a very long time ago when we might think, yes, but humanity, we've progressed so much since then. Have we? I don't know. I mean, let's hear those verses again. What do you think? The heart is deceitful above all things. The heart is devious above all things. What do you think? Do you agree with Jeremiah? I was working on this on Valentine's Day. Can you imagine this as a kind of Instagram post on Valentine's Day? Well, I mean, if you've ever had a bad love experience, you might think, yes, I have definitely met that deceitful, devious heart and been burnt by it. And now, you know what? I don't trust anyone. Because that's one of the things that Jeremiah is describing, isn't he? And it's intrinsic in those words, deceitful and devious. At some level, what that means is there's a betraying of a trust. It's in that very nature of the word. It implies fooling the person who isn't asking, what's the con here? And let's face it, most of us are terrified of being that fool, you know, the one who didn't spot the carefully woven lies, who didn't spot that we were just somebody's mark, somebody to be exploited. So in Jeremiah says in verse 5, cursed are those who trust in mere mortals and make mere flesh their strength, whose hearts turn away from the Lord. Cursed are those who trust in mere mortals. Who are these mere mortals Jeremiah is talking about? Who do we need to be on our guard against? Well, our first instinct might be, yeah, that person who's hurt me, people like them. Maybe you have a face that flashes through your mind of someone who definitely isn't trustworthy. You know, I have a few candidates. Or did he mean a generic, dangerous person, whatever that means for each of us? Maybe. But I have a feeling Jeremiah also had someone else in mind when he said these words. Someone much harder to hear about and talk about. I suspect that he meant us to hear these words and then look inwards at our own hearts. That would mean that our own heart, yes, ours, yours, mine, they're capable not only of deceiving others, but of deceiving ourselves. Self-deception is a very scary thing. And there are plenty of academic articles which will describe what exactly a slippery slope of self-deception looks like. Very often, it's rooted in a desire to avoid blame and responsibility. It's rooted in an insecurity about who we are. Yale professor Zoe Chance said from research that she carried out into this that self-deception is incredibly common. And we lie to protect usually our self-images, and that allows us to act immorally while maintaining a clear conscience. Self-deception. This should, and it does frighten me, it should frighten everybody, because she says that our brains can fool us into believing things that are not true. It allows us to inflate our opinion of our own abilities so that we believe we are smarter than everyone else. And it also means that we overlook the repercussions of our actions on other people, so that we believe we are generally acting in a moral way. And guess what? Others not so much. It's quite a hard thing to do, because one of the natures of this beast is that we inherently can't identify it, because we have been so successful in deceiving ourselves. Now, when I talk about this and, you know, the heart being all bad, then we might say to ourselves, well, does that mean that all feelings are bad? Does that mean when it says I can't trust the heart is deceptive, does that mean that all feelings are bad? Well, no, not at all. In fact, I say that just about every feeling we have because it reflects what these feelings, it reflects the fact that God has these feelings, because we're made in his image. So why can't we follow our feelings if those are feelings God gave us as a reflection of him? Well, the difference between us and God, of course, is because sometimes the root of the feelings is good, as in God's holy case, and sometimes it's bad. That is to say, sometimes we have feelings that come from concern for others, or because we have a desire to please God or enjoy the life that he has given us. But at other times, more like Professor Zoe Chance was talking about, our feelings are rooted in some very dangerous machinations of the heart, which basically involve a twisted view of ourselves and others. So I was thinking about this and kind of linking it to, you know, just a number of other biblical principles. And I thought I'd just leave you with some concrete ABCDs of the devious heart, some roots to watch out for. So A, let's call that arrogance. A is arrogance. Arrogance is a foundational twisting of a narrative about myself and others, relative to others. My perspective, my skills, desires, my goals, my calling, my feelings, they're somehow more valid, meaningful, insightful, valuable than anybody else's. And so I will be doing whatever it takes to put them forward, to protect them, and therefore not listening or paying attention to others. So A, arrogance. That's a really nasty root. The second one is blame. Blame. Blame always comes because there's a rejection of responsibility. It's a rejection of responsibility for self-protection, not a healthy self-protection, but a denial of something that actually I should be owning up to. It's asking others to pay a price for my failures. This is ultimately a self-deception about where right and wrong lie. This is the one that is most devious in many ways and really has its roots back in Genesis 3. We see that deceptive pattern being laid. So A, arrogance, B, blame, C, control. Control. Well, when things go wrong, when I'm trying to protect myself, when I'm trying to not allow others to see that I have done something wrong, well, there's all kinds of manipulation that comes out of that. A desire to control circumstances, control narrative, distorting facts, spinning different messaging, essentially saying, I now need to get a hold of this so that nobody finds out something about me, or maybe so that nobody kind of sets aside, arrogance, the thing that I know is best. Arrogance, blame, control. But underlying all of this, there's a D, the D of doubt. The D of doubt, not in myself, obviously, but a D of doubt in what Jeremiah is calling us to. Jeremiah was calling us to trust in God. All doubt in God and his goodness, well, that was the first instigating tactic to undermine a love connection with God in Genesis 3. And one of the richest soils for planting doubt is insecurity about who I am in God's eyes and his love for me. If I'm doubting my eternal value, worth, and purpose, the soil of my heart is ripe for deception by others and for myself. Well, this is an incredibly uncomfortable notion, deeply at odds with what the Bible tells us. Jeremiah says and calls us to, blessed are those who trust in the Lord. Blessed are those whose trust is the Lord, for they shall be like a tree planted by water, sending out its roots by the stream. It shall not fear when the heat comes or the year of drought. You know, we're not going to delve into this, but let me encourage you, friend. If you feel like you are tossed by messages where you don't know where you should be anymore, just remember this call. God is trustworthy. All those different voices out there, they are trying to deceive us. God, however, is the trustworthy one. And maybe our prayer today, as we close, can very simply be, Lord, give me a really clear mind. Give me lucidity so that I see the truth that you see about myself and others, mostly about you, and show me how to be like that person planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Lord, make me that tree, deeply rooted in you. Have a good week, friends.